So, Joe, when it comes to building a successful solo business, you obviously want it to run smoothly in the present, but you also want to future-proof it, or at least future-proof it as best as you can to prepare for any curveballs that may come your way. Obviously, COVID was something, and the
Yeah.
monstrosity of it was nothing that most business owners could have predicted. But there are some things that you can kind of like gauge the ebbs and flows of that I kind of wanted to address today. So one of those is to the only topic I want to discuss today is staying on top of trends, because that is one way that you can future-proof your business.
Yeah.
By staying, like, for people that are not using AI right now, they're not staying on top of a trend and they're falling behind in a sea of competition that is using AI to better streamline their businesses.
But it's important to note that there are people that are using AI wisely, and there are people that are using AI poorly and still trying to convince you that they're using it wisely, and you don't want to jump on that train. So I don't know if we want to dig deep here today, Carly, but using AI to create your content for you, carte blanche is very, very, very bad.
Joe, we can spend a whole episode talking about that. But today I feel like let's talk about ways that we can really stay on top of trends just in general. ChatGPT maybe wasn't the best example from a trend standpoint, because I don't think it's a trend. I think it's here to stay.
Well, yeah, it's not. It's a trend. It's like a trend, kind of like automobiles and airplanes and
Yes.
and the internet. And there are people that said the internet was a fad.
True.
They said it, but yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, we're in agreement.
My biggest tip for people who want to stay on top of trends, and the easiest thing they can do, is to declutter their newsfeed and start following people that they need to pay attention to for their business. I know for LinkedIn, let's use LinkedIn for example. I follow so many people where I just scroll past their posts because I followed them at one point and just haven't taken the time to unfollow them. But then I end up not seeing the posts that I should be following that are relevant to our business, because there's just so much clutter preventing me from getting to it. So the first thing I recommend for people is to start unfollowing people you genuinely just don't pay attention to. You're simply an impression that sees their post and you just keep scrolling. Get it to a place where you're only following people that can benefit you and your business, and whether that's competition, whether that's people that you admire and you strive to be, whether that's people who are good with industry trends, or people that share similar audiences. But just make sure it's things you actually care about, and then get rid of the fluff.
And I totally agree with that. But there's also the fact you have to be aware of what the trends are, right? So sometimes you need to identify what the trends are in order to then know who you should follow or not follow. So I'll give you an example. We had someone on one of our Solopreneur success sessions recently, Ellen Gitze, and she talks about how to make LinkedIn videos that work. Well, a couple of years ago, LinkedIn videos wasn't really a big deal. It was, mostly text posts and things, and maybe, you have some graphics, and then it was kind of the carousel kinds of things. But now, all of a sudden, LinkedIn videos are huge, and anybody that's not doing LinkedIn videos is probably going to get left behind. And that's something I've been working on personally, because I don't love videos, I've said 100 times, but it's got to be done. But, sometimes you have to do a little work just to kind of see what's happening in whatever it is, in this case, LinkedIn, to know that something's a trend. And, maybe there's somebody talking about it and you can find them and subscribe to the newsletter. But there is a certain amount of not just, abdicating your responsibility to keep on trends to somebody else that's supposed to tell you, if you get my drift.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And once you know what those trends are, you are subscribe to newsletters, which is super important. But you can also set up Google alerts, or set up social monitoring where you will be alerted of these trends. So you're not constantly manually going in and searching for these, but you can actually get notifications through social media as well as your email of what's going on. Again, whether it's directly related to your business or something that could impact your business, that's a bigger picture thing.
Yeah. And I mean, you need to put, that time on your calendar as part of working on your business to do some research, poke around a little bit. And it's not hard. It's just a matter of taking that time to say, hey, what's happening? There was a newsletter called Trends. I don't know if it's still around anymore. I haven't seen it recently, but, and that used to be a little bit interesting. 90% of it didn't matter to me, but every once in a while I was like, that's interesting. But I'm not sure where that's at these days. I'll have to check into it.
Perfect. Well, but the other thing that I think is hard for solopreneurs is it can get so easy to start working in a silo. So even if you are getting these notifications, if you aren't actively talking to your audience, to people in your industry, to people that competitors might target, and actually putting yourself out there and engaging, you're going to be falling behind in the trends, because that's where you get so much of that information. There's a foodie Facebook group here in my city, and people chatter about what went wrong, what didn't, all these things. And it's kind of like the behind the scenes take of the restaurant scene here in town. You're not going to find that from a Google alert or a newsletter or anything, but you'll find it by actually paying attention to what people are saying. Your target, let's say you're trying to open a restaurant, you'll find it by what people are saying behind the scenes. And unless you're paying attention and actively involved in these communities or getting out in person and talking to these communities, you're going to be missing some of the chatter that's going on that you want to get just from the typical notifications that you get in the digital world.
Those restaurant owners should be in that and following those carefully.
Oh, they are. And they are communicative because it's a very, very active Facebook group. Yeah. So
I hope they're not just making excuses.
Yeah, exactly. So just know what the people are saying. But those are my biggest tips to set up those alerts for you, to take the time to stay on top of trends, and then to actually network and get to know the people that would impact your trends.
Yeah, I just got one more thing I want to say, and that is this is really important. Depending on your business, it may be more or less important. If you're a custom horseshoe maker, maybe trends aren't as important. Horse technology isn't really, at least as far as I know, hasn't gone a long way in the last 100 years. Horseshoes are horseshoes. But if you're, doing the kinds of things that most of us are doing, you're going to be impacted by trends. But watch out for the shiny object syndrome. It's also easy to go, oh, look at that. Oh, that's happening. And jumping on every new trend, and be a little bit, I am the kind of person that tends toward that. If it looks cool, if it's interesting, if it's exciting, I tend to want to jump into it, but it doesn't help because you end up going in too many directions.
Yeah, makes you go nuts. But anyway, those are our 2 cents for staying on top of trends to better future-proof your business. To future-proof our business, we need those reviews and these shares and the likes. So please leave a 5-star review, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and share with a friend. And we will see you next time on the Aspiring Solopreneur.